What if I told you there's an ancient warrior who has defended an entire nation across centuries, seen in visions, dreams, and final battles? His name is Michael the Archangel, and his mission: to protect Israel through every war, every exile, every prophecy. You've heard of warriors, but never like this one. Welcome to Divine War Stories, the channel where supernatural warfare meets biblical truth. Here angels don't just watch, they fight. Demons don't just tempt, they invade. And heroes rise, chosen by God for impossible missions. If you're ready to uncover the hidden battles behind the Bible, you're in the right place. Long before modern armies and political borders, there was a battle happening in realms unseen. In the heart of this cosmic war stood one celestial warrior, Michael the Archangel. He wasn't just a messenger or observer. He was, and still is, a commander of heaven's armies appointed specifically to defend one nation above all: Israel. From the ancient days of Daniel to the prophetic visions of Revelation, Michael's sword has clashed with dark forces that threaten God's chosen people. But who exactly is he? And how deep does his mission go? Michael first explodes onto the scene in the book of Daniel, a scroll written during one of the darkest periods in Jewish history, Babylonian exile. Daniel, a prophet in captivity, receives terrifying visions of future kingdoms, wars, and persecutions. But in the middle of these nightmares he hears a name: Michael. Not just an angel but the great prince who stands guard over Israel. He is described not as a passive protector, but as a warrior who arises in moments of great distress. That word, arises, means he enters the battlefield. He doesn't watch. He fights. Let's rewind. Imagine Daniel on his knees, fasting for 21 days, seeking answers from God. He's weak, trembling, until a heavenly figure appears. But this being was delayed. Why? Because the prince of Persia, a demonic principality, was resisting him. It took Michael stepping in to break the stalemate. This wasn't just a spiritual pep talk. It was a celestial battle in real time. The forces of darkness were literally trying to stop God's message from reaching Daniel. And Michael was the key to victory. Now let's talk about titles. Michael isn't just an angel. He's an archangel. That title only appears for him in the entire Bible. It means chief of angels, a high-ranking commander in heaven's army. He's not a helper. He's a leader. And when it comes to Israel, he's not neutral. He's deeply invested. In Daniel 12 verse 1, it says he will stand up during the end times, a phrase that suggests battle readiness, leadership, and urgency. Michael's role doesn't fade in history, it intensifies. Think about this. Every empire that tried to crush Israel, Babylon, Persia, Rome, had more than political motivation. Behind their thrones were dark powers, principalities, demonic kings. Michael's battles weren't just with human armies, they were cosmic. And each time Israel faced annihilation, Michael was there in the shadows, unsheathing his sword. His defense wasn't just reactive, it was prophetic. He was guarding God's promise not just to people. Fast forward to the intertestamental period, the time between the Old and New Testaments. Though not canon in all traditions, Jewish writings continue to exalt Michael as a spiritual protector. In texts like the Book of Enoch and Jubilees, Michael is seen restraining Satan, contending with fallen angels, and standing as the high priest of heaven. The people of Israel didn't forget him. They prayed for him. They counted on him. He was their heavenly shield while their earthly swords often failed. Then comes the New Testament, and Michael is still on duty. In the book of Jude, we find him arguing with Satan over the body of Moses. Yes, you heard that right. Not just a symbolic figure. Michael literally contends with the devil himself to protect the body of one of Israel's greatest prophets. Why? Because even in death, Moses mattered. Israel's leaders were sacred. And Michael wasn't about to let the enemy desecrate what was holy. But nothing prepares us for Revelation 12. This is where Michael steps out of the shadows and into cosmic glory. John sees a war in heaven, dragons, stars falling, angelic armies. And at the center? Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon, Satan, and casting him down. It's not a metaphor. It's the climax of a long-hidden war. Michael doesn't just protect Israel in the past. He fights for her future. A future where the Messiah reigns and the accuser is silenced forever. Why Israel though? Why is Michael so deeply assigned to this one nation? Because from Israel would come the Messiah. The promise given to Abraham, the line of David, the prophecies of redemption, they all hinged on the survival of this one people. Michael's mission wasn't just political, it was messianic. He was guarding the bloodline, the prophecy, and the very foundation of salvation history. Every time Israel survived an attack, it wasn't just a victory, it was Michael's blade keeping the covenant alive. And here's what's wild: Michael's role isn't over. According to prophecy, he'll rise again during the time of Jacob's trouble, a future tribulation where Israel will face unparalleled distress. But even then Michael will stand up. And not alone. Heaven's army will rise with him. So the next time you hear about political tensions in the Middle East or ancient prophecies about Israel, remember, there's a warrior in the heavenly realms, and his name is still Michael. But Michael's battles aren't always visible, and that's the terrifying beauty of it. While world leaders make decisions, borders shift, and history books are written, there's an invisible war unfolding above. Michael operates in silence, yet his influence echoes through generations. Every miracle of survival in Israel's history, from the Red Sea to the Six-Day War, bears his signature. Not every blade he draws is seen, but every move he makes fulfills a heavenly assignment. He doesn't just defend land. He guards legacy. Let's pause on that. During the Holocaust, when 6 million Jews were slaughtered and the darkness seemed to win, many wondered, where was God? But if you understand Michael's pattern, you know his interventions often come just before the turning point. Out of the ashes of genocide came the birth of modern Israel in 1948. Against all odds. Surrounded by enemies. Yet they stood, survived, flourished. And spiritually? It aligns with what Michael has always done: preserve what hell tries to erase. Now here's a mind-bending thought. What if Michael isn't just protecting Israel's physical nation, but also spiritual Israel? The remnant believers, the grafted-in Gentiles, those who carry the testimony of Jesus? Revelation tells us Michael leads the charge in the war against the dragon because of those who keep the commandments of God and hold the testimony of Jesus. He's fighting for covenant people, across time, culture, and even bloodline. The battle is personal. And it's ongoing. Michael also carries divine timing. He doesn't move on impulse. He rises when the moment demands it. That's why he didn't stop every exile or prevent every hardship. His mission isn't to shield from all pain. It's to ensure destiny is never destroyed. He arrives when evil crosses a line. When the enemy dares to interrupt prophecy. When prayers reach critical mass. That's when the general of heaven unsheathes his sword, not to delay judgment, but to enforce it. And let's not forget, Michael doesn't fight alone. Scripture speaks of his angels, suggesting command. Heaven operates like a kingdom, not chaos. Orders are given. Legions are dispatched. Warfare is strategic. And Michael? He's the battle commander. When God says go, Michael leads the charge. Against Persia's prince. Against Rome's shadow. Against the final dragon. He's not just a warrior, he's a general of light, and under his leadership no darkness can stand. It's easy to imagine Michael as distant, a mythic figure of the past. But he's more active than we realize. Every spiritual battle has ripple effects. When believers pray for Israel, when intercessors cry out for peace in Jerusalem, when nations rise against God's people, Michael watches, waits, responds. Heaven doesn't leave Israel defenseless. There's always a counterattack. And behind it, wings of fire and a voice like thunder. Here's a question that rarely gets asked. What is Michael fighting for? Not just survival. Not just land. But restoration. Every time he swings his sword, he's protecting a path toward redemption. A path that leads to Mount Zion, to a returning king, to a restored Eden. That's the finish line. And until it comes, Michael is stationed like a sentinel, ensuring that the promises of God don't fall prey to the plans of the enemy. He was there when God called Abraham under the stars. When Moses stood on Sinai. When David danced before the Arkansas. When prophets cried and priests failed. He stood watch when the temple burned, and he will return when it rises again. He is heaven's silent protector. Never worshipped but deeply honored. Some say spiritual warfare is symbolic, just poetic language. But Scripture doesn't treat it that way. From Genesis to Revelation, the Bible shows us a reality layered with unseen forces. Angels wrestle, demons whisper, and destinies hang in the balance. Michael is a pillar in this structure. And the more we understand his role, the more we grasp how serious, how real, and how urgent this battle truly is. It's not fantasy. It's faith in action. So what should we do with all of this? Stay alert. Pray for Israel. Recognize the spiritual dimension behind world events. And trust that we are not alone in the fight. Michael's story reminds us that God has not abandoned his promises. The same angel who stood for Daniel still stands today. And though we may not see the swords, the war continues, and heaven never fights without purpose. Subscribe to Divine War Stories for more epic truths behind the veil, because some battles are too big for Earth alone. If this story moved you, imagine what's next. There are countless unseen wars, unsung heroes, and divine interventions waiting to be revealed. Hit subscribe and join the ranks of those who see beyond the natural. Welcome to Divine War Stories. Ask ChatGPT.